So hello, welcome to the Joy of Awareness. My name is Tolly Bryn. I really wanted to talk a bit about morality and ethics, because I have in recent weeks and months been realizing that I have not been a moral person. I have not lived according to objective moral values, which are conducive to human thriving and evolution. And I've only recently realized that this was actually a thing, that that all this moralizing, all this back and forth in the media, for instance, today, about the pandemic and all this stuff, which I'm not gonna talk about that specifically, because I'll probably get banned, because I don't have popular opinions on that. But I'll talk about it somewhere else, don't worry, and I'll tell you where you can listen to my thoughts on that when the time comes. But for now, let's talk about morality a bit. I have found through my own experience that morality is more than just a set of rules that, your priest or your psychologist or news anchor or whoever it is tells you. That is, it's a code of rules that you need to live by, or else you'll go to prison and have to pay money or whatever it is. That is more or less how I approached morality and ethics up until very recently. I say very recently, but in the last few years, I would say, I have slowly but surely been starting to realize that morality must play an integral part in human life if we want to thrive and strive for goodness and beauty and truth. I want to start this video off, though, by reading a quote from Ayn Rand, which has profoundly affected me. So this is the virtue of selfishness, actually, but the quote itself that I'm going to be taking is from John Galt's speech from the book Atlas Shrugged by the same author, and I highly recommend you check that out along with The Fountainhead. These two books have really changed my perspective on what it means to be human and what it means to actually do good in the world. And it has pushed me away from altruist ethics and more towards what you would call, or what Ayn Rand calls, objectivist ethics. And I'm not totally sure that I agree with absolutely everything. I won't say that, simply because I am so opposed to ideology in general. I do believe in finding ideas from various sources and working through each of them at a time. And even, that's part of the reason why I absolutely love Ayn Rand, is that she has the exact same approach. She abhors package deals, as she calls them, where you have a set of ideological beliefs and they come as a package deal. So you call yourself, what is it, you call yourself a vegan, and you don't eat animal products and you don't buy animal products, and you are an activist against animal products and all this stuff. But what if you're a vegan simply for health reasons, and you stopped eating animal food simply because you believed wrongly that it would help you to live a healthier life? At what point do you call yourself a vegan, and at what point do you say, this specific idea that eating animal food is bad for me, that is an idea that you're working from, rather than I am a vegan and the entire package of ideological beliefs that go with that? I hope that makes sense. Anyway, let's go to the quote. So, John Galt in Atlas Shrugged. Through centuries of scourges and disasters brought about by your code of morality, you have cried that your code had been broken, that the scourges were punishment for breaking it, that men were too weak and too selfish to spill all the blood it required. You damned man, you damned existence, you damned this earth, but never dared to question your code. You went on crying that your code was noble, but human nature was not good enough to practice it. and no one rose to ask the question, good? By what standard? You wanted to know John Galt's identity. I am the man who has asked that question. Yes, this is an age of moral crisis. Your moral code has reached its climax, the blind alley at the end of its course. And if you wish to go on living, what you now need is not to return to morality, but to discover it. And this is what I have been thinking about a lot in recent weeks. Societal moral codes, for the most part, I believe, well, maybe not for the most part, but there are some base ideals in societal moral codes, such as you shall not steal, you shall not attack a person for no reason, that is to say, unless it's in self-defense, you shall not murder, you shall not rape, you shall not steal, etc. These are universal moral truths that and moral laws that are codified into law and definitely should be upheld in any civilized society. But then I believe there are also all kinds of moral discrepancies that come about, and what I've specifically been thinking about in recently is the conundrum of taxation. So, taking money from anybody, even if it's for the greater good, is, I believe, morally wrong. Taking money from somebody, taking value from somebody without their consent, to put it into something that's for the public good, is a ridiculous concept, and I'll explain why. Let's take, for instance, the healthcare industry, or as I like to call it, the disease promotion industry. No, I don't really call it that, but it should be called the disease promotion industry, simply because it has nothing to do with health and everything to do with disease. And it is based on an allopathic pharmaceutical model, for the most part. And as you know, if you've been watching my other videos, this approach is highly destructive, absolutely not conducive to health. And if I had a chance, if I had the choice, I would completely stop paying taxes for this system, except for some very, very specific services, such as ER services, for example. If I break my arm, I want to be able to go to the ER and have a doctor fix it, to patch it up. If I have a car accident, I want somebody to be able to take me in, give me some blood and maybe some anesthetic if it's needed. If I amputate myself accidentally, I want somebody who can sew it back on. Like, these are very, very good, for the most part, services that I would be happy to pay taxes for. But, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be happy to pay taxes for them. I would be happy to pay insurance for them, which is a completely different matter, and that would be fully voluntary in a free society. But how is it justifiable to take money from me, for example? And I don't make a lot of money, so my taxes don't do much either way. But for the sake of argument, let's say the government is taking taxes from me and pouring it into this broken healthcare system, which actively harms its patients. I don't know if you know this, and it's a very disturbing quote, but 1/3 of deaths in the US are caused by medical mistakes. And that is just absolutely incredibly scary. Regardless, though, people make mistakes and doctors make mistakes, obviously, and that is something to, that's something that just cannot be changed, I think. It can probably be mitigated in some instances by making sure that they're not overworked, making sure that things are organized and everything like that. But how is it morally acceptable and justifiable to take money from me to pay for something that I absolutely do not believe in, and that I believe is actively harming, and that I actually have some concrete proof that it actively harms many of its patients? It's justifiable on societal grounds by the mere fact that it's for the public good. It's for the greater good. And even if I disagree with that, since I am not part of the majority, my opinion doesn't mean anything. Now, there are other cases of this. For example, here in Iceland, politicians, ministers, senators here in Iceland, their pay has been going up very steadily in the last few years, and it has increased, I think, at least twofold, if not more, in the last 10 or 15 years. Okay, where does that money come from? It comes directly from my pocket and from the pockets of all other Icelanders, and they have no say in the matter. Is this justifiable? They say, wow, we have so much responsibility that we deserve to be paid very well, but at what point has any politician ever been held responsible for anything that they do? At what point is the state responsible for any mistakes that it does? And the answer is at no point at all. Anyway, enough of my anarchist ramblings here. Maybe I'll go deeper into that at a later point, but the reason I chose that quote from Galt, which is actually on the first page of the first essay in this book, The Virtue of Selfishness, which I really like. It's a bit dry. It's just philosophical articles, but it is very thought-provoking, and I highly recommend that you check it out. But the reason I chose that quote is because I believe that we are in a situation now in Western society that absolutely concretizes that quote. So, in essence, the quote says, when something goes wrong in society, everybody starts crying out that it's not that the moral code of society is wrong, it's that human beings are wrong, and that human beings are disgusting and valueless, and that human morality must be overtaken by societal, cultural, even state morality. And I don't want to be putting words in the mouth of Ayn Rand, but that is how I understand it. And when we look at what is going on right now, let's take Australia, for example. Locked down due to a single case. I can't remember, it was like one province locked down completely due to one case. And this is to fight a disease that has a very, very high survival rate, and especially among young, healthy people, almost absolutely no likelihood of death or severe disease. Now, be that as it may, when something like this goes wrong, and when we have more issues coming up, more cases coming up, people stand up and are like, if only everybody would follow the rules that society has set, this wouldn't be happening. And the sooner we can all just obey the rules and just follow the morality and the ethical code that the state has set for us, things will get better. And we'll go back to normal, within quotation marks. And this is exactly what is wrong. Compliance to inhumane moral codes is what is wrong and what has always been wrong and always will be wrong with human society. If we take the Nazis in World War II, think about not about the absolute worst players, the guys at the top, Goebbels and Hitler and Goering and all these horrible guys, sorry. These are people who are, I believe, I don't know, but I believe that these are just inherently evil people. These are people who, human morality can't save them. They're too far gone. I may be wrong, but I do believe that's the case. But take the prison guards, take the concentration camp guards, take the police officers who escorted the Jews and the disabled and the homosexuals and the gypsies into the boxcars to take them to the concentration camps. Think about their morality. I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my duty. this is just what the state has told me to do. I may not agree with it, I may not believe in it, but I'm going to do it anyway, because it is my duty to uphold the law. You must realize that societal law is trumped by objective morality. And what that means is that even if there's a law that says that you can, for no reason, beat up your neighbor and take his stuff, you will still reap the incredibly negative consequences of those actions by virtue of universal law, whether or not you are punished legally for that action. Now, I hope that makes sense. So the prison guards who sent all these people to their deaths knowingly were legally in the right at that time. Now, obviously, after the trials, after the Second World War, the Nuremberg trials, for instance, it became clear that these laws were unlawful, if you can say that, and that these people were actually punished after the fact for doing this, as they obviously should be. But it's easy to say, like, oh, well, it's legal, so it's okay. It's stupid, but it's easy to fall into that trap. And we are obviously raised to put the state and put societal law, state law, above everything else. And we, believe in the state and we trust it to make good decisions. But you have to ask yourself, are you going to be the prison guard who says, I'm just doing my job, get in the boxcar? Or are you going to be the guy who says, what, Jews under my floorboards? No, I would never break the law while keeping, 100 Jews under your floorboards and saving 100 lives that way. Even though it would mean, if it came out into the open, that you would go to prison or even face death, and certainly social ostracism for doing so. Which side of the moral spectrum do you want to stand on? Is it on the side of the state, or on the side of human beings and of life and of higher ideals? And this is something that I believe that we really, really need to ask ourselves in light of the authoritarian restrictions that are being set on our society. Now, I'm kind of apprehensive, since I'm uploading this to YouTube, on what I can and cannot say, so I'm not going to go much deeper into current affairs right now. But regardless, you should be able to pick up the context for which I'm speaking of here. And in my previous video, I was speaking about how breaking universal moral law, or objective moral law, results in dire consequences for the individual at play. The individual who is behind the action, and the individuals who are on the receiving end of that action. So, for instance, if I steal from somebody, obviously the person has lost whatever it is that I stole, but I have lost even more by virtue of breaking moral law. Now, that is whether I believe in moral law or not, and that is why I call it objective moral law. And if I understand correctly, objectivist ethics, in the words of Ayn Rand, have a similar connotation. So they are objective. These ethical laws, these moral laws, are objective simply because it doesn't matter your subjective opinion of them. Stealing is wrong. Taking money, whether it be for the greater good in your mind, like, for instance, if I steal from the rich and give to the poor, that can be morally ambiguous. Like, if I steal from somebody who has stolen from somebody else, I would say that makes it okay. But the fact is that stealing from somebody who has broken moral law is no longer stealing. Now, you can't decide who has stolen and who has not. it must be objectively approached. You can't just say that if somebody has money, then by virtue of having money they have stolen it, and therefore you are justified in taking that money, which is what the tax system is. Now you should ask yourself, so that I'm going to allow myself to ramble a bit more about the tax system. If taxes are what they are said to be, which is a redistribution mechanism to take from the rich and give to the poor, ask yourself, why in most Western countries do poor people pay taxes? Now, that is a baseline, concrete example of the hypocrisy of the tax system and of the state. If it were actually to redistribute money, then you would completely remove taxes from everybody below a certain income bracket, and take money from those with the most money and give it back to the poorest of us. Now, I do not believe in that kind of system either, but I'm simply pointing out the hypocrisy of the current, welfare state, within quotes. I believe, and I don't have the actual statistics for this, but I do believe that the majority of money that is taken in taxes goes directly into the pockets of all kinds of people in politics. Now, this is a complicated issue simply because there are so many ways that money taken from the public in the form of taxes can be squandered and misused. I think the most common way for misuse of public funds is simply cronyism. So these are mafia tactics. If you look to Sicily and the south of Italy, for instance, this is a very open and very common way of redistributing money. That is to say, the government takes money from its citizens in the form of taxes, and then it hires mafia companies to do sanitation or to throw out the trash or whatever. And these people very willingly do a very bad job of it, if they do the job at all, and take money for it. And due to the corruptness of Sicilian police, for instance, nothing is done about this. Now, that is a very simple example of how this is done, and I believe that here in the West, well, Sicily is in the West obviously, but in countries that are deemed to be less corrupt, they are actually not less corrupt. They have simply become more adept at hiding the corruption. Anyway, I've had enough of rambling about the tax system, as much as I like to ramble about it. What I'm about on this channel is individual responsibility and individual health. And whatever my beliefs on the tax system and on the state, although definitely important issues, what I want to focus on here is how the individual can create the best life for himself, how he or she can thrive and become the person that it is absolutely possible to become. And I'm starting to realize that living, a truly moral life is what will get you there. And what that means in the context of morality and of personal values, what that means is doing your best to figure out universal law. Now, obviously, as a huge proponent of direct experience and of doing your own research and not trusting authority, that also means not trusting what I'm saying here. You can definitely listen to ideas from various sources, but you have to verify them for yourself, and you have to do the work yourself. If you can in any way directly experience or use your direct experience to form your model of reality, do that. But if not, work with the ideas that seem the most plausible, but do not take them on face value. Do not take them on faith. Faith is helpful in many respects, but when it comes to building a model of reality, faith is not helpful. you must be as empirical as you possibly can in figuring out what universal law is and how you can follow it. And that means in every aspect of life. That means finances, that means diet, that means exercise and just general physical health, mental health. When I say mental health, I mean doing the things that are conducive to mental health and removing the things that are not conducive. And realizing that every time that you binge watch Pornhub or spend 7 hours playing League of Legends or Warcraft or Minecraft, like I'm guilty of Minecraft definitely, but not 7 hours thankfully, but a couple of hours here and there, and the case can be made that there are things that you can do in moderation that may even be conducive to mental health. And I'm not here to tell you what is wrong and what is right, simply going over my ideas on that topic. But you must realize that whenever you make a decision to do that, or let's say like binging in front of Netflix, watching some absolutely poisonous series like The Handmaid's Tale or Game of Thrones, and I say poisonous because even if they are very well done and good cinematics and cool story, the violence and the absolute inhumanity and anti-human ideals to be found in many of these shows are not conducive to mental health. That being said, lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I was talking about mental health. You must realize that whenever you make a decision to do any of these things, you are actively harming your mental health, and that is a sin. That is a moral deficiency that you must fix. And I'm not saying this to proselytize or to, sermonize. I'm saying this for your own good. Like, seriously, this morality is for you and nobody else. Although everybody else will benefit from you being a moral person, morality is about yourself. You are doing the moral thing for yourself, and only for yourself. And only in that way will you be able to spread the good, the true, and the beautiful around you in the world. You must secure your own oxygen mask before you try to help the person next to you, is what I'm trying to say here. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't, be open to helping people in need. Like, that is absolutely something you should do. Just be aware of this. So, that's it for now. Like and subscribe, definitely. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. So, peace.